up, everybody? I think I got this thing to work. Let's go. Not the smoothest transition at the beginning. We're just going to pretend like that didn't happen. What's up, everybody? My name is Jonathan Miller, and I am the host of All Things Titans. Welcome to the All Things Titans podcast. I am streaming to YouTube and to X, Twitter. So if you guys are watching from there, I appreciate you. This is the first time I've done like a live format show, so I'm actually really excited to kind of do this one, have it be like a less edited production and kind of just have fun, like free flowing fun with it. Hopefully, I got some folks chatting in the comments as well. If not, we're just going to blaze through this thing. So, first things first, guys, we're going to kick this thing off. We're talking about a 7 round mock draft. So, I'm going to go through in detail each round. We're going to dive into a mock draft. We're going to be using Pro Football Network's platform, mostly because I'm not paying for PFF because I don't want to. Anyways, probably will end up like as we get closer to the draft. But Pro Football Network has a really great simulator. Awesome. I think their rankings are a little off on certain prospects, but that's the case for pretty much all of them. Like I don't even necessarily agree with all of PFF's grades. So, anyways, we're going to use Pro Football Network, and we're going to dive into what that looks like. So before we get into the actual mock, I wanted to cover a couple of things here. First topic kind of being, what does the quarterback hype mean for the Titans at 7? And we've heard it all offseason so far. You have 5 quarterbacks who very likely could go in the first round. 3 or 4 of which, well, 6 quarterbacks really, 3 or 4 of which have the chance of going in the top 6 or top 10 picks, top 7 picks in this case. And I think that there's a good chance that that happens. Now, we'll see. I'm probably going to do like full team mocks as we get closer to the draft. But for today, I'm just going to focus on the Tennessee Titans and their draft. So we're going to let the mock simulator do what it does, as random as it might be. And the Titans, I'm just going to act as if I am myself, not necessarily what Rand Carthon will or won't do. But regardless, I'll walk through it all and talk through like my justifications on certain picks and all that fun stuff. So what this means for the Titans is that this puts the Titans in a premium position, sitting at pick 7 with 2 teams that are very much like them in the New York Giants and the LA Chargers sitting in front of them, which isn't ideal. But they are in a good spot considering that the top 3 picks very well should be quarterback. And then, who knows, maybe the Cardinals trade out or maybe they stay put and take, their receiver of the future. Regardless, there's 3 stud receivers in this class, in my opinion. There's 2 stud left tackles in this class, in my opinion. And then there are, of course, all these quarterbacks that the Titans aren't in contention for, but it's great that they are being picked right before the Titans pick. So Rand Carthon and the Titans are in a phenomenal position where they can literally say, look, we'll stick and pick. We're going to land one of Neighbors, Adunze, Alt, Fashanu. We're going to get one of those guys for sure. I mean, I guess Marvin Harrison Jr. you can throw in there, but I think he's a bona fide top 5 pick regardless of who's picking. But regardless, we're gonna land one of those guys. So I think in the case where they do end up landing one of those guys, they're in a premium position. Rand Carthon and team, they can't really go wrong. If they stick and pick, they're going to get a stud blue chip player. If they decide to trade down, which I am probably going to explore at pick 7, I'm always going to explore it. Then they have some options because maybe you trade down with a team like the Raiders or the Broncos or the Vikings, who very much will be in contention for a quarterback. Now, I'm going to make something very clear. A lot of people are saying, well, the Vikings are interested in Drake May and they want to go up to 3 and da 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 da. Unless they are just sending an unreal, just insane package of picks and players potentially to the New England Patriots, they're not going to trade out. Like they need a quarterback. They're going to land either Jaden Daniels or Drake May, both of those guys who should be studs at the next level. Um, I'm not necessarily worried about that. So, and neither should they. So I don't think that they're necessarily going to trade out. I think they stay and take their quarterback. So quarterback. We'll see what the simulator does, but that's probably going to be the case. And now the Titans can, JJ McCarthy has been talked about very heavily. I think Michael Penix is sneakily scaling his way through the first round up those ranks. One of those teams, the Raiders or the Broncos, or potentially the Vikings, even at 11, are probably going to be willing to stay where they don't necessarily have to give up a bounty of picks, and they can probably just take a Michael Penix, right? Like a guy who is better than consensus believes he is, in my opinion. And, is he like is he a top 10 pick? No. Is he a first round pick? Sure. Sure. I wouldn't necessarily take him there, but there's a lot of teams in the teens that need a quarterback, and that guy could make a big difference for them, especially like a team like the Raiders, who is probably fine with a quarterback like Aiden O'Connell to just lead their team for this year, and then maybe have like a Penix or a Bo Nix kind of compete with him and potentially start later in the season, whatever. You have some flexibility. So those teams don't necessarily have to give up a bunch of draft capital to move up, but we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. The Pro Football Network simulator does not allow you to overrule or force trades. So that's kind of a bummer, because I would prefer that. But in this case, that's totally fine. We're just going to take what we can get, essentially, and we'll jump into it. So what this means for the Titans is they're in premium position. They get to say, okay, what are our trade options? And if they have a really good one, maybe they move back to 11. Maybe they move back to like 10 even. Maybe the Jets decide they want to jump up, and it's like they're like Titans are for sure not taking Joe Alt or whatever, right? There's a million scenarios, but in the case where the Titans trade down, I think they probably shouldn't trade down past 13, which I think is to the Saints, if I remember correctly. Yeah, no, to the Raiders. I would say they shouldn't trade down past 13. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. So the next one, really quickly, that I want to talk is, and we kind of talked through it already, is the thing of stick and pick, or do we trade down? We talked about trading down, and I think that if Ran Carthon should consider it, having picks 7 and 38 are fantastic, but this draft is absolutely loaded in the top 100 players. There are just oozing with talent in the top 100, and you only have 2 picks in the top 100, and that's problematic. So two scenarios here where Ren Carthon can trade down from 7 and load up, probably get a second or a third potentially, depending on who's trading with them. And potentially even be able to get that 3rd round pick back that they just sent for L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed should be free. He should have been a free transaction come this draft day, because they're going to trade back in some facet, I would assume. So let's see if that's 7 or if it's potentially 38, because I think trading back at 38 might be premium. Also, the top of the 2nd round is premium trade back and trade into space. So I think it's very possible the Titans could very well trade back and maybe pick up a 3rd or a 4th, trading back maybe 10 or 15 spots or whatever, and still be able to land like an edge that they like, maybe a tackle or a receiver that they like. There's a lot of options. So that's what we're going to talk about, sticking and picking. Let's go ahead and transition over here really quick, because I want to discuss what our options are here. And so taking a look at the draft board as it stands right now, I just loaded this, so we can roll with this. I'm totally fine with this. I don't necessarily think that this is what happens. I think the top 4 picks are going to go this way. Personally, I don't think the Cardinals are going to trade out. I think they're going to stay and take Marvin Harrison. As for the Commanders, I think they take Drake May. But we'll see. Drake May is my quarterback too. So this is how I personally would see it. Now, Joe Alt to the Giants, I don't necessarily see it that way. I think Malik Neighbors to the Chargers makes sense. I think the Chargers try to trade out. If the Vikings are going to trade up for JJ McCarthy, I think this scenario probably goes that way, where they trade into 5. But they might also see it to where those other teams aren't going to necessarily try to trade up. So they might, these 3 teams here, the Chargers, the Titans, and the Giants, are all in the same boat. They can all stick and pick their wide receiver of the future. They could all stick and pick their tackle of the future. For the 2 teams ahead of us, that's the right tackle primarily, which seems less likely that they would do that, because there's so much right tackle talent in the 1st round that you could just trade back and get your star right tackle. You don't necessarily have to take a Joe Alt or a Fashanu. But for the Titans, it's a harder decision, because the Titans now have to say, okay, do we want to draft our tackle of the future, which is what everybody is telling us we should do, and it makes sense? Or do you take your receiver of the future and say that, yes, there's tons of wide receiver talent in this draft, but the top 3 guys are so next level elite that you just take them, because you're not going to be in a premium position to take an elite receiver in the draft ever again. And the last player that the Titans got at that level was AJ Brown. And yes, that was in the 2nd round, and he developed into a superstar. But again, once in a blue moon, it doesn't happen very often. And maybe you decide that Bill Callahan is a coach that can develop talent, and you can find a guy that can develop into the left tackle of the future. Or maybe you sign a Bakhtiari or Andres Pete or somebody who can kind of like stopgap as you develop some of the talent you have on the team, like Jalen Duncan, who played pretty promising considering last season. So there's a lot of things that the Titans have to factor. And the reason why I want to talk about all of this up front right now is because it's all important going into the mock. You have to understand what the conversations the teams are having and what the considerations that they're taking, because there's so much talent and there's really not a right or wrong way to do this. They can take a Joe Alt, or in this case, a Fashanu, right? Because he's the one on my board here, and be just over the moon. Like, cool, we got our left tackle of the future. Boom, stud. Or you could go in a different direction. You could go Dallas Turner and be like, okay, now we've plugged the need that we had at edge, and we've stopped the bleeding on our defensive line from some of the holes that were left. And then you're good with that, right? There's several options here. You can trade down, which is what we're going to explore right now. Or you take Rome Odunze, which is a guy who there is an account, I think it's called, man, I'm going to butcher this, guys, but it is basically someone who runs an account that does like all the advanced analytics for like routes run and win rates and stuff like that for receivers. It's called Reception Perception. I think that's what it is. And it's fantastic. And when you look at Rome Odunze's reception, I'm going to butcher it a million times. You guys know what I'm talking about. When you look at Rome Odunze's advanced stats on his routes, it's the cleanest and the most impressive of like any receiver in the last decade, right? Like his comparisons are like guys like Davante Adams, right? Like he has elite comps when it comes to what he does on the football field and what he's done in college. So for me, I get really excited about that type of thing. And you have to consider, like, you have to sit back and think, like, DeAndre Hopkins is 30 years old. He's most likely not returning to the team next year. If he's playing any more football after next season, he's going to try to unless the Titans have a far more impressive season than what we're expecting them to have, he's probably not returning. You have Calvin Ridley, who turns 30 years old during this season, who is playing younger than his age, sure, but probably going to play out that contract, and that's going to be that, right? Outside of Calvin Ridley, you have guys who are unproven and are not, starting caliber players for sure. Like, we haven't seen enough from Treylon. He's been hurt. We haven't seen enough from Kyle Phillips. He's been hurt. We've seen plenty from Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and we know that he's not an elite receiver. He's not a guy that makes a difference for your team, right? He contributes. He doesn't. You don't game plan for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. No disrespect to NWI, but that's just how it is. So with all of those things in consideration, you have to think like a Rome Odunze, a guy who has Davante Adams level of talent, potentially. It's a strong consideration here. So if I'm the Titans, this is an impossible decision. I would strongly consider Rome Odunze, just jumping into it. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our trade offers, because this is a premium position. A quarterback who's risen up the board, JJ McCarthy, is available right here. You have guys like Dallas Turner and Rome Odunze, who are elite talent that are also still Olu available. So the Titans have a decision to make. So let's see who's buzzing our line. The first one is the Miami Dolphins. And their trade offer is not horrible. It's a first round pick, the 21st overall selection. It's their second round pick, the 55th selection. And then you have a 25 second and fourth, which is absurd. Let's keep looking. We have two other offers. Don't hate that offer. Don't love it. But if this is a real offer, Titans get offered a first, 2 2s, and a fourth. You have to consider it. Next pick is juicy. The Raiders say, here, move back 6 spots to pick 13 and take our next year's one. That's probably a high one. That's a top 15 pick, first round pick, maybe even less. It kind of depends on what their quarterback situation is this year. But that's insane. Don't love that. would probably counter and try to get their second this year also. Or maybe try to get their second and third and then just ask for a second or third next year. So that way we can fill some immediate holes. Like the Titans are all in. They spent the most money this offseason. Like they are trying to compete. They're trying to make something happen. So first next year is amazing, but I think adding some talent here would probably make a bigger, just because this draft is so good. Like it's just, there's so much talent. You want as many picks in the top 100 as you could possibly get. That's my goal. And then the last trade offer is a juicy one. Minnesota says, here, take pick 11 and 23, but give us 7 and 38, which I don't hate it. But again, my goal is to have as many top 100 picks as possible. And giving up the 38th pick is just kind of moving up here, which is not bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. But if I'm trading with them, like I would almost rather keep pick 38 and take Olu or Rome here at 7 and just keep it pushing. So this one's tough. For the sake of keeping this draft going, I think if this is a real offer, the Titans strongly consider this, because you can get one of those tackles at 21. Like, Tyler Guyton. Let's see. Let's take a look at some other guys that would probably be there as far as tackle goes. Amarius Mims. They have JC Latham ranked at like the 19th best player. That's absurd. JC is up here. He's a top 16 player in my opinion. He's above Mims, but that's about right. So yeah, so a Tyler Guyton's probably there, potentially JC or Amarius slips. Those guys are primarily right tackles, so I don't love that. But as far as like wide receiver goes, like potentially Brian Thomas Jr. is there. Keon, AD, Xavier, like those guys are all still there, but that doesn't really get me excited, to be honest. As far as edge goes, like Dallas Turner's gone, Latu's gone, Jared Verse is gone by that, but Chop is probably there. Darius is definitely there at 21. So you have options. And then you pick up pick 55. So then you have pick 38 and pick 55 in the Miami trade. So that's intriguing to me. That's really intriguing to me. And then, of course, you get a second and a fourth. So you completely erase the debt that you've created next year from the L'Jarius Sneed trade. And that the L'Jarius Sneed trade is just free 99. In my mock, I think I'm going to take a trade. But if I'm the Titans, it is really hard to pass on Rome Odunze here. And you're sitting at pick 38, like the tackle situation is dry. Like you're basically looking at Kingsley Suamataia, you're looking at Jordan Morgan or Patrick Paul. I like Patrick Paul. So Patrick Paul at 38 does not sound bad to me at all. I like his athleticism. He had a really good Senior Bowl. I'm pretty high on Patrick Paul. And I think there's a good chance he's there at 38. Being ranked 56, and PFF has him at like 90, no shot. This is a second round pick. Patrick Paul is a second round pick. Every way you stretch it. So at 38, he's definitely probably there. Kingsley Suamataia is mine, probably even there, but I think I'm starting to like Patrick Paul over these guys here, to be honest, which is crazy because I didn't think I would, but I'm there now. So if I'm being honest, guys, my heart wants to take Rome Odunze so bad here. Rome is next level elite. I don't think people understand. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if Malik Neighbors is here, just running the card to the podium, right? But he's not. Olu also, I'm very high on. I love Olu Fashanu. He is, every part of his game is amazing, and I like him even more as like a person. That sounds so silly, but I think it matters to the teams. He interviews so well. He is articulate. He is well spoken. He is modest. He is just. He's got it all. He's got it all. And I think he has a even higher ceiling. I think he has a lot he can improve on. Bill Callahan gets his hand on this kid, and he is a gold jacket player. I really think that way. And I feel the same way about Rome Odunze. So that's why I'm struggling so hard here. You know what? I feel really good about Patrick Paul also. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm about to do this. Oh, okay. Let's just hear me out. This is we're going to spend the most time on this pick. So let's really air it out. Okay. there's a handful of players that I like here. We don't have to have, a lot of Titans fans are big on like we have to get a blue chip player at this point. And I hear you. I hear you. And I'm a big fan of that because we also have pick 38 to kind of rebound a little bit. Like hopefully one of these edge players slide to us at 38. I'm a really big fan of that. Like I like the idea of like a Chris Brasworth, a Darius Robinson, Adisa. I'm not like really huge on, but one of those players at 38, I would love. And I think that would fill a big need on the team. And then you can kind of like, I like Javon Baker at wide receiver. I like Ricky Pearsall. I like all these guys, really. I would be happy with any of those guys. Not huge on Des Walker, but really like those other guys a lot. Javon Baker is ranked 144. He's up here. He's closer to like 90, I would say. He's a third round pick. And so we would probably get him in the fourth round at pick 109, but he's not going to be there on April 26th. He's picked on April 26th, which is my birthday, by the way. Pretty cool. So guys, this is so tough. I'll be vocal in saying if this is how the board falls and the Titans pick Olu Fashanu, I'm going to be ecstatic. I love Olu. Sorry, not ecstatic. I'll be happy with the pick. If the Titans select Rome Odunze in this spot, I'm going to be over the moon. I'll be really excited. Because why not? When was the last time we took a top 10 receiver, Corey Davis? Yeah. Look at the wide receiver class that Corey Davis was in versus this year's wide receiver class. It's night and day. Corey Davis was the best receiver available that year, and like we picked him at 5th overall. Oof. And I like Corey Davis. I think he turned out pretty good. Not a top 5 pick, but he turned out pretty darn good. And guess what? We had our franchise left tackle at that point too. So really tough. Basically what this means though, to break this down really quickly, and then I promise we'll move on. If you take Rome Odunze, and here's like the strategy of the draft. This is actually probably the most important aspect that I'll cover today. In this scenario, if you take Rome Odunze, your plans change because at pick 38, you essentially have to go tackle. And at that point, that means it's Jordan Morgan, Patrick Paul, Kingsley Suamataia. It's one of those guys. And worst case scenario, because if those guys are taken, which is possible, worst case scenario, like Rosengarten's the next, guy. Kieran from Yale, who actually played really well. His last season, I think I'm not sure that I don't think he played on the left side of the line though. I think he played right tackle. Regardless, he's okay, but at pick 38, you can't take these players at pick 38. Blake Fisher, right tackle. Like you're not going to pay that premium on him. Like there's a couple of guys that are Javon Foster. I wouldn't mind like later in the draft, but these aren't guys that like are going to contribute at left tackle anytime soon necessarily. So it changes. If you take a receiver here, you have to hope that one of those early second round tackles are there. And I think they will be. Patrick Paul has been in all these mocks. I don't think anyone's going to take him sooner than 38. I think he's a really good player, but not that level. I think the Titans would value him in 38. It's because of who you have. You have Bill Callahan, who would, know better coach. Like one of the things that Patrick Paul has struggled with is kind of like anchoring, like doing like the chop anchor, like little technical things. Like he's a specimen of a athlete. He just kind of needs the technical help, and who better, right? So like it's okay to take a stretched talent. That's why I'm justifying this. Like I can go Rome Odunze at 7 because at 38, I feel comfortable with a Patrick Paul or a Kingsley Suamataia because they are coached by one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. Like if we still had Keith Carter or Jason Hoteling or something, I would be worried. Yeah, like big worried. I'd be like, you have to take Olu here. Don't have a choice. But with a couple of guys still being able to be signed in free agency, I'm not seeing any comments, by the way, guys. I know I just squirrel brained that, but if anybody's there and you're commenting, I can't see it on my side. I apologize. Honestly, I might be getting those on X, and I just can't see them for whatever reason. So yeah, so if you take receiver here, which I would like to, you kind of you have to hope one of those tackles falls. Now, the inverse, okay, is you take Olu Fashanu here, which great option. Then you're kind of in a position where it's honestly better in some ways, because then you can look at edge at 38, and the way the board should fall, Dallas Turner will be gone, Latu will be gone, Jared Verse gone, Chop Robinson gone, Darius Robinson potentially gone, right? So then you're looking at like Chris Broswell, Braylon Trice, Adise Isaac, Marshawn Nealon, who shouldn't be considered that high. I think Marshawn, I would put him above like Brandon Dorlus and Braylon Trice. Actually, like Marshawn Nealon to me is probably edge 7 or something. But still, like, not necessarily a guy you want to take at 38. Like at 38 is almost a first round pick. Like the top of the second, this is a starter caliber player for you. Like they are starting. And someone like Darius Robinson, no, Darius Robinson would be a dream at 38. I don't think it happens, but they have him ranked at 39, so he might actually fall to me in this mock. But in real life, I am not confident that happens. So Chris Broswell, also I think he's ranked a little low, 54. I think he's an early second round pick, in my opinion. Considering how like not deep the edge class is, like there's to me like 6 or 7 guys that can be starter caliber players maybe, and then that's it. And then the rest of them are developmental guys, in my opinion, like all these guys. Jonah Ellis, he's way too low on Pro Football Network's rankings. 152 is ridiculous. He should be up here, like probably under Marshawn Nealon. Regardless, so you guys see how it goes. Like I can take and here's the thing. Like you can also look at receiver in this case. Brian Thomas, Rome Odunze will be gone. Keon Coleman probably. A.D. Mitchell probably gone. Xavier probably gone. But then you have, at 38, you have Ladd McConkey, you have Troy Franklin, you have Malachi Corley, Jalen Polk, who I really like, Xavier Legette, who I really like. Ricky Parasol is going to be there at 38. So like most likely. So you have options to add talent at 38. So on paper, that makes more sense, right? It's just about whatever your flavor of the month is. So my flavor today is, let's see if we can offer a counter. Let's see if we can offer a counter to somebody. I don't want to go all the way to pick 21 because that means I'm going to miss out on some serious talent, and I don't think that's really an option. I like the Minnesota trade in this scenario. Let's see what we can work with them. I'm not giving you 38, and let's see if I can just finesse pick 23 as well. I'll send them 146. I'll send them a 7th, and I'll send you my 5th. Let's see if that does it. Yeah, I had a feeling. So they literally just want the 2nd in order to get the 23, and I'm not willing to give up pick 38 because I don't think that necessarily helps. Like if I go to pick 23 instead of 38, like maybe I land one of those tackles, like Tyler Guyton or somebody like that potentially. But now I'm giving up like pick 11. I don't know. I'm just going to move on here. So we've talked through and rationalized all of the Titans options at this point. And to be completely honest with you, I don't have a good temperature for what the Titans will actually do in this case. They have so many options. All it takes, guys, like I just rationalized who the 2 picks are that you consider in this spot, given this scenario. Joe Olt's gone at 6. Malik Neighbors gone at 5. Marvin Harrison gone at 4. So the real thing is like the Dolphins, like let's say, for example, they throw in another pick and they're like, we want desperately into 7. I don't think that Rand Carthon is opposed to going to pick 21 if he picks up a 2nd, a 3rd, a 2nd next year. Like if the compensation is right, he's going to take it. And then he's going to make out like a bandit and pick a ton of really talented players in the top 100, which is ideal for the Titans, to be honest with you. You go get your linebacker, you go get, edge help, you go get nose tackle help, you go get receiver help, You go get all these guys, like tackle help. You fill all the holes. And so I think that's probably what they're trying to do. But in this case, today, we'll have more mocks. But in this case, let's say I these are my offers. I don't love this offer, right? Well, let's see. Let's just see. Yeah, I don't really want anything else. Like their picks, I want to pick in the top 100, another one. It's not enough. So let's just say all these trades are just okay. Okay, hold on. For kicks and giggles, let's say we could pick up. Let's say we can pick this up. Let's say we get this. This would be ideal. This is my ideal scenario. Okay. Since the Raiders didn't accept it, we'll move on and pick our player. I'm taking Rome Odunze. Titans get their future stud receiver. Rome, D-Hop's going to walk. Rome is going to take place and be the future with Will Levis, which I think is also another factor here. You can have, like the Bengals have proved that you can have adequate offensive line play, and have absolute studs on the outside in your playmakers, and then you can go to a Super Bowl from that. Hell, they had a legit shot at winning if Joe Burrow wouldn't have gotten sacked 9 gajillion times, which, kind of goes back to the, hey, if you don't have the protection. So I get it. But you're playing against Aaron Darnold, and he absolutely massacred their interior offensive line, and our interior is looking pretty good so far. So we'll see. Here is a trade offer from the Buffalo Bills. They say, hey, move all the way back to pick 60. We'll give you a second next year. That might be enticing. But in this case, in this mock, we took our receiver of the future. So we desperately need our tackle if we can find him, which I think we will, which is good news. Darius Robinson also there. Oh my God, gut punch. Another tough decision to make, but Dallas Turner to the Falcons, Laiatu Latu to the Bears. I really like that. JJ McCarthy to the Jets. Definitely an interesting one. Highly doubt that's going to happen. I think there's a good chance that the Bears might even trade out if JJ McCarthy is there at 9 and pick up some more picks. They need more picks this year. I think that's probably pretty likely. Like someone like the Raiders or the Broncos might be like, okay, yeah, I'll jump up a couple spots. Here's a second or third or whatever. Olu to the Saints is chef's kiss. That's amazing. Terrion Arnold to the Colts is good. Brian Thomas Jr. to the Broncos. I actually really love this pick. Brock Bowers to the Vikings makes zero sense, but do you? Quinyon Mitchell to the Rams. Love that pick. Jared Verse bolsters the defensive line for Jacksonville. Amarius Mims to the Bengals makes a ton of sense. Jackson Powers Johnson to Seattle makes a ton of sense. Love it. Couple of tackles going here. Nate Wiggins at 23 to the Vikings. Like that pick a little bit more. Kingsley Suamatia at 24 to the Cowboys. A very Dallas Cowboys pick. Chop to Tampa. Love that. Johnny Newton to the Cardinals. Big fan of that pick as well. So all this is pretty standard. JC Latham at 31 to the Niners. Cancel the entire league. Jordan Morgan getting taken before JC Latham is a comedy show. Then Cooper DeJean slips into the second. Ladd McConkey taken at the top of the second. Makes sense. Christian Haynes, who I think is a first-round pick, goes to the Cardinals. The Cardinals are having a slam dunk of a draft. A.D. Mitchell to the Patriots. Love that pick for them. Adisa Isaac over Darius Robinson would happen 0 times out of 10, out of 100, out of 1,000,000. So here we are. So good news. Patrick Paul still on the board. We talked about how we would be really happy with that. But then there's Darius Robinson, who is a absolute stud. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to make this very simple and easy. Don't love the trade because I need a premium player at this pick. Now, if they had so like if they don't have a 3rd-round pick. If they had a 3rd-round pick, I would consider taking a 3rd and then maybe a 3rd next year in addition to 60. I would probably do that. Maybe. No, I wouldn't. Never mind. We're taking Patrick Paul. So we're happy with this. We get our receiver. We get our tackle. I only didn't take longer consideration there because Darius Robinson is not going to be there. He just won't. If he was, then you have to strongly consider taking Darius Robinson there. So here we are, pick 106 in the 4th round. The 3rd round is now over. A handful of really talented guys go up here. Spencer Rattler to the Steelers is hilarious. Look at this. Kieran going 101. That's interesting. He almost fell all the way. Trevin Wallace, linebacker from Kentucky, goes to Seattle right before us. And then Johnny Wilson, wide receiver. That is a really interesting pick. Who are the receivers left on the board? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So Javon Baker, love Javon Baker. Even with Rome Odunze being taken in the first round, I would still consider this pick because I think Javon Baker is amazing. But at this point, we have our receiver, we have our tackle. We need to start looking at some depth on the defensive line. We have to start looking at some depth at linebacker potentially and seeing kind of what our options are here. So I don't love where the talent is on the board at this point. Let's take a look at corner just out of curiosity. Yeah, so Kyrie Jackson's Cam Hart still there in the fourth, which is kind of where he's projected, I think, but really good players there. Let's see what the safety situation is. Jaden Hicks, Malik Mustafa. So Mike Herndon and TD, Teron Davenport, have been really hyping up Malik Mustafa. He kind of got on my radar because of them. I think he's awesome. So a strong consideration for Malik Mustafa here. If I can't find like good value across the board at other positions. So like at linebacker, for example, I'm not particularly wowed by any of these guys. I like the idea of maybe a Jared McGee or a Jordan McGee, sorry, later in like the seventh or something. I think McGee's probably rising up boards. Realistically, he's probably like going to get taken in like the fifth or the sixth or something. So there's a good chance he doesn't fall to us at that point. Edge. This is okay. Jonah Elise and Javon Solomon are, just depth options at that point, which you might consider taking here. As far as nose tackles go, all the big ones are gone. Christian Boyd is a guy that I like late. A couple of other guys that are serviceable that you can consider. So I'll probably look at a Christian Boyd later, maybe in the sixth or something if he falls. As far as offense goes, don't really love what our options are. Theo Johnson is interesting. So Theo Johnson's at the top, one of the most athletic as far as just athletic grading. I mean, he scored his relative athletic score was a 9.93. That is absurd. 6'6". I think there's a lot of potential for him to be a serious piece. And you know what? I kind of like I do more than like I love Theo Johnson. So I'm gonna go Theo Johnson here. When you have a guy that's just that athletic, like you just add a ton of versatility to the tight end room. Not particularly great in blocking schemes, but I think that there's a lot of potential there. A lot. This is just strange. I like pick 146, but the trade offer is interesting. Going back to 176. So going from the fifth round to I want to say the sixth round. So going back around, trading one of my seventh, and then them giving us 3 early compensatory selections, essentially early in the seventh. I don't really care. I don't really care for that. Probably gonna stick in pick because I'm interested to see if Mustafa Malik made it. He is there. Holy cow. Okay, so that's probably gonna be the pick. Tommy Eichenberg is interesting, but I kind of want to go for Jordan McGee here a little bit later in the draft. Christian Boyd is there as well. So taking a look at the board holistically, yeah, Malik is like right at the top of the board. Marshawn Lloyd, interesting. I think they might consider him in the later rounds potentially. But overall, man, let's go with Malik. So let me update my banners here. Let me update this. So we took Rome Odunze in the first. We took Patrick Paul in the second. We have no third round pick. And in the fourth round, we took who did we take in the fourth round? Absolutely not. I don't want to trade with you guys. We took Theo Johnson in the 4th round. So Theo Johnson. And then in the 5th round, we got Malik Mustafa. I think is how you spell it. Mustafa. Something like that. All right, just updating my thing. I have to do it manually because balling on a budget over here. So there we go. Updated our ticker here. Okay, so here we are in round 6. Pick 182. Jarvis Brownlee and Christian Boyd sitting at the top. Okay, so this is tough. And Tommy Eichenberg all there. So here's the thing. In a real mock, I'm not super confident that Jordan McGee doesn't get drafted in this round, but in this case, maybe he continued. He's not by any means a stellar talent. I just think he's really good value later in the draft. I think the Titans like him. They went to the Temple. I think it's Temple. Went to their pro day, had representation there. So I think it makes some sense. So at this point, I'm going to go with, oh, that's so tough. I think I really love these 2 players. Jarvis Brownlee, who has a top 30 visit with the Titans as well, by the way. They really like him as well. And then Christian Boyd, which I think is underrated, really good player. Getting him in the 6th round is really good value. And it adds some pretty good depth. Just a menace 1 tech. Plays the 3 tech well as well. I think it would be a really good fit. I was curious what he scored, but they don't have that available. But I'm gonna go with Christian Boyd. I think nose tackle is a bigger need. The defensive line needs a little bit more depth. The cornerback room is about as good as you can get it. So pretty happy with how that all panned out. So here we go, 7th round. This is where general managers make their money. So let's see who is at the top of the 3rd. Tip Ryman is solid, but we have Theo Johnson, so we're not going to go tight end again. We can add some edge help potentially, some additional edge depth. I like the idea of that. I also like the idea of looking at some interior offensive lineman help, which we could have looked at sooner in the draft, if I'm being honest. Don't really love whoever's there at this point now. Frank Crum is interesting. That kid is solid. We'll probably pick him up with one of our 7th round picks. He'll probably slide. I think there's a good chance that he gets taken earlier than this, actually. Another guy I'm really high on is still there. Kingsley Ikukan is the center for the Florida Gators, who had a pretty good, I watched his tape from last year, and he was solid, very solid. So 7th round value on Kingsley. I would have to take him right here probably because I think he's getting taken otherwise. But other than that, could have looked at some wide receiver depth as well. There's not really any later round. Casey Washington is interesting. I don't really love any of the guys who are left here. I think a lot of these guys will probably end up being, UDFAs undrafted rookies that will likely get brought in. So I'm sure the Titans have their eyes on a couple of those guys. Running back, I don't think is super pressing either. Especially considering they brought back Julius Chestnut. So don't think that's anything crazy. And then as far as the defense goes, Jordan McGee getting awfully close to the top of the depth there. When's my next pick? 242. So do I think he gets taken in the next 21 picks? Possible. Very possible. Do I want the linebacker or do I want the center depth? Yeah, at this point, I think I have to go linebacker, which is kind of a bummer because there's a good chance that Jordan McGee falls to 242. I don't think Kingsley does. So we're going to go with Jordan because let's say that he's on everybody's radar at this point. He's going to get drafted in the 7th round, I think. Probably a 6th or maybe even a 5th round pick, though. So we get our linebacker. Got our linebacker depth, feeling good about that. Got our safety depth, feeling really good about that. Got our tackle, got our receiver of the future. Feeling really good about how our draft is going so far. And at this point, you're just kind of looking for like best player available. Some okay guys here on edge. Again, these are just kind of like depth projects, essentially. Let's see where our corner situation is. Kind of in the same boat. Don't really love who we have here. But that's okay. We're at the bottom of the 7th round, so this is kind of where you're at. At this point, it's probably hard. It's pretty hard to predict where the Titans might go. Like, let's just take a look at just best player available. We'll probably just go Sundiata, Anderson, or wait, hold on. Is Frank Crum still there? He is. That's our pick. A little bit of tackle depth. Why not? And then at this point, yeah, like pick 252, like we're nearly all the way at the end here, and we're just going to go with best player available at this point. Hey, Sundiata Anderson right there. Don't know a ton about that player. I'm going to be, oh my God, look at Kingsley sitting right there. And look where we're picking. Perfect. Boom. All right. So there you have it, folks. So this is our 7-round mock draft. This is the direction we went. I think, this is probably like the path hardest traveled, for lack of a more proper way to say it. This is the toughest part because you have Rome Odunze, so you get your absolute stud receiver. Great news. You have Patrick Paul, who I'm really happy with. I think he could definitely be starting left tackle at some point in the year. You probably don't want him to, but in the scenario where the Titans don't go left tackle in the 1st round, I think it's very possible you see an Andres Pete, David Bakhtiari, Mekhi Becton. One of those guys will probably get signed and come in and play left tackle as your Patrick Paul, Kingsley Suamataia, Jordan Morgan, one of those guys as they sit back and kind of develop. So I don't hate it, to be honest. And then Theo Johnson in the 4th round, which I'm really happy about. Just kind of like best talent available at that point. You would hope for an edge at this point, but a lot of that talent has skated away a little bit. So you're just kind of stuck with Theo in this case, which great player. Another potentially dynamic offensive weapon for Brian Callahan and Will Levis. So I like it. The first 3 picks are offensive. I don't hate it. Malik Mustafa, fantastic value in the 5th round. Super excited about that. Christian Boyd, really good value in the 6th round. I like him a lot. I think he can come in and play some valuable snaps for you. Jordan McGee at the top of the 7th for the Titans anyway. And just, again, good linebacker depth, which you desperately need. And then the last 2 picks, we landed on some really good players. Frank Crum and Kingsley Eguakun, who I think is, if he doesn't play center for you, like maybe he can help in the interior. Maybe he's some depth there. Great player. Awesome player. So I really like this. I think, as the Titans kind of go through their options here, and let me update my ticker. But as the Titans consider their options here, they're going to take a look and say, okay, well, whatever player we decide to go with, it's going to, change the course of our the course of our draft. So, I think that there's a really good chance that they go, tackle and just make their lives easier. Because if you go tackle, there's so much talent at wide receiver. So if you trade down from 38, like there's a reality where you take Olu Fashanu at 7, you trade down from 38, you get another 3rd round pick or what, you acquire a 3rd round pick this year and maybe a future pick to help stymie the L'Jarius Sneed compensation that you got rid of later. And then you're chilling. Like, you know, you're in a really good spot. You're really happy with how things played out, and you got your guy. So it's like, you know, they don't have to go the wide receiver route. I think that's just like the fan in me who wants to see that, because you very, very rarely see the Titans take receivers at that level. So that's interesting. You know, we'll see. I'll probably continue. I've had mocks where I've taken the tackle. I've done a ton of mocks where I've traded down and then taken a tackle, gotten some talent at edge, and been really happy with how that looked. So, you know, I think Ran Carthon, if I'm being clear about what I think the actual intentions are of RGM, I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to look to trade down, and they're going to try to add as much top 100 compensation as possible, and they're going to go plug in holes with a lot of the talent that's here. I mean, look, I didn't have a third round pick. I didn't add anything. I just sticked and picked on everything. And even with that, they still added quite a bit of talent. So I would have really liked to have an edge. We left this draft without an edge. That's a bummer, because there's not a whole lot of options out there. So that kind of stinks. In a trade down scenario, adding a top 100 pick allows you to get an edge. Excuse me. So we'll roll with it. We'll roll with it for now. So yeah. So, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comments. This one's going to go straight to YouTube. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch. I think we had around 37 concurrent viewers for a while here, so that's really awesome. Appreciate you guys. We'll end it here, and then we'll definitely have a ton more content coming your way. If you don't follow me on the All Things Titans channels, I would really appreciate it if you would. All Things Titans on YouTube. Make sure you drop me a sub. Would greatly appreciate more content like this coming to that medium. And then I'm making a ton of content on TikTok as well. It's still All Things Titans on TikTok. A ton of short form videos similar to this, just in, you know, bite-sized versions. And then, of course, on X, on Twitter, you can find me at esportsvalen. I will be most likely updating my handles on social to kind of reflect the content that I'm doing now. It's not just primarily esports anymore. So, yeah, really appreciate you guys taking the time to rock with me today. And we'll see you in the next mock, which will certainly be coming soon. Let me know what you guys think. Peace.